Hello, this is Kate Mallory. Today we are discussing the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals and how the United States, as well as Cambridge, Massachusetts, is measuring up in terms of sustainability. To start, it is important to note that the world is facing many global challenges. There is rising and aging populations that are shifting to cities, and caring for these increasing populations will continue to be problematic. Climate change is also a global challenge in need of dire reform for most countries, especially the United States, India, and China, where the most climate pollution is generated. We already see the effects of climate change with more dangerous and frequent natural disasters, disruption of farming production, and acidification of our oceans, and effects of pollution to our freshwater supply. Basic services such as water, energy, housing, healthy accessible food, affordable health care, and education are currently needed for the 7.3 billion people living on our planet, with half of them living in cities. It's expected that the population will increase to 8.5 billion by 2030 and 9.7 billion by 2050. The majority of the population will be living in cities where access to basic services will be crucial, with an incredible challenge to create infrastructure to meet the growing needs. Another global challenge is governance and the growing income inequality. In more recent years, the poor and middle class have stopped seeing the largest income growth, with the shift moving towards the most affluent people. This has created corruption and a loss of faith in many government officials, creating instability. With all these challenges, global security concerns are a real threat to our future. All of these challenges make the outlook for our planet by 2050 sound very grim, but fortunately the United Nations, along with the participation of many stakeholders, including individual governments, citizens, NGOs, and private companies, have come up with the Sustainable Development Goals. These 17 goals are considered the new social contract to transform our world. To quote straight from the United Nations website, the Sustainable Development Goals are a call for action by all countries, poor, rich, and middle income, to promote prosperity while protecting the planet. They recognize that ending poverty must be hand in hand with strategies that build economic growth and addresses a range of social needs, including education, health, social protection, and job opportunities, while tackling climate change and environmental protection. The 17 goals shown here are all incredibly important to the continued positive development of the world. Some goals are more important than others to individual countries and communities based on current and future needs. The United States is a developed economy with many cities of inherently complex and interconnected system of systems, and it seems the focus of our culture is not on sustainability. To quote the SDG USA Director Jeffrey Sachs, the U.S. is not a top performer in sustainable development. In this year's global ranking, the U.S. ranks 35th overall, even though it is one of the richest countries in the world. The problem, in short, is that the U.S. economy is heavily focused on profits at all costs, even at the cost of the poor and the cost of the natural environment. With this in mind, and in keeping with the United Nations goals, the SDG USA has truncated the 17 goals down to the most relevant 7 goals for America, aptly named America's Goals. So how is the United States, and in particular Cambridge, Mass, progressing on these goals? I chose to focus on Goal 1, Good Jobs, and Goal 6, Sustainable Infrastructure, Resilience, and Innovation, to see how the U.S. is doing. America's 7 goals encompasses the 17 UN goals by combining goals particularly for the needs of the U.S. For example, America's Goal 1, Good Jobs, can encompass the UN goal of no poverty, hunger, good health, gender equality, good jobs, economic growth, and reduced inequalities. The same goes for America's Goal 6, Infrastructure, Resilience, and Innovation. Many of the UN goals fit in this category, most notably sustainable cities and communities, as well as climate action. A great resource to begin the research on this is America's Goals report card site at americasgoals.org/report card. The graph shows how the U.S. is doing regarding Goal 1, which is good jobs. You can see here that Massachusetts ranks 4th overall, and that the country as a whole has a lot of work to do to ensure a livable wage, paid leave, and labor right protection. Digging further, I can see the country as a whole and see how each state is doing regarding paid family, vacation, and sick leave. From this graph, I can clearly see that the U.S. has a lot of work to do, with most of the country not providing these benefits. Drilling down even further, I can see where each state is excelling or failing based on different categories. Massachusetts excels in paying a livable wage and paid sick leave, but is particularly low on paid family leave opportunities. This is particularly important to note for the Sustainable Development Goal number 5 for gender equality. Women are especially affected by non-paid leave when having a child and having to suffer with less or no income while taking care of the child, but also having their career suffer for having to take time off to raise the family. Cambridge is a great example of making a living wage a priority for all their employees. Cambridge currently pays a minimum wage of $15.64 an hour, well over the current federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, which hasn't increased for over 10 years. This living wage provides more opportunity for the employee to not live in poverty, to be food secure, and have access to basic services. Also, while the U.S. has no federal laws on paid family medical leave, Cambridge offers paid paternal leave that includes 8 weeks fully paid for maternity and also the opportunity to extend this to 20 weeks using other paid time off. The paid bonding time has particularly equaled the playing field for women who are not only getting full pay for months, but also are able to go back to their careers without repercussions or setting back their future career paths. As previously mentioned, America's Goal number 6 pertains to sustainable infrastructure, resilience, and innovation, which can particularly pertain to UN Goal 11, which is sustainable cities and community, and UN Goal 13, climate action. The U.S.'s infrastructure is dilapidated, and according to AmericaGoals.org, 1/4 of the public roads are in poor condition. The lack of infrastructure makes the U.S. vulnerable to climate change and increasing natural disasters. A look at plans to make communities in the U.S. resilient to natural disasters shows an even more disturbing picture. It seems that 10 states are failing in this category, including Massachusetts, which is a coastal state particularly vulnerable to natural disasters. Drilling down even further, Massachusetts is failing at the basic level at engaging with FEMA for mitigation plans, stringent building codes, and transit accessibility. On the other hand, Cambridge is working hard to be resilient against the effects of climate change. Cambridge is developing a climate change preparedness and resilience plan that will be completed in 2019 with input from many stakeholders, including city departments, local business, citizens, other government agencies, and research from local universities. Cambridge realizes the vulnerability of being impacted by heat, flooding, and natural disasters. Their climate change preparedness and resilience plan, which is set to prepare the community and reinforce buildings towards withstanding the changed climate, will also work with the city to create a net zero city and increase the livability of the city. Cambridge has been very serious about climate change and emissions for many years, especially in city buildings, where they've achieved LEED certification on every new building since 2002. Looking at all the global challenges that the world is currently dealing with and the projected future challenges, the UN Sustainable Development Goals are an important social contract and roadmap to deal with city and population growth. Although the U.S. is part of the UN, the current administration hasn't seriously adopted the goals, leaving the U.S. lacking in many areas. The progress is coming from the local level, where many states and especially local cities are making major changes to the urban planning to include the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, focusing on America's goals. As we move forward, it's important to support your local community efforts, as large changes can and do come from lots of smaller local efforts.